All games tell stories. Some are more intended than others.
Welcome to the main event!
This is not that kind of talk. The point of the paper is to introduce goals, feedback, and interpretation as three concepts that demonstrate why all games tell stories. GFI stands alongside three key ones you may already know: mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics, or MDA. Mechanics are how you can act, dynamics are how the system reacts to you, and aesthetics are how you feel. GFI fills in critical gaps needed to talk about narrative design in particular. Goals are why you would want to act, feedback is how you would know the system would react, and interpretation is why you feel the way you feel. Let's go deeper. To us, there are two classes of goals. First, the ultimates. Three kinds of conditions to meet to succeed at a game. Win, like in basketball, where some evaluation happens to determine the winner. Finish, like in Mario Brothers, where no evaluation happens at the end. And prolong, like in DayZ, where play ends against your intent. Second, the imperatives. 10 kinds of closer to gameplay conditions that eventually satisfy an ultimate. You can choose an element from a set, like options within dialogue trees in Boyfriend Dungeon. Configure elements until they are in a correct state, like puzzles in The Room. Create elements that didn't exist before, like when you craft in Minecraft. Find elements whose location isn't known to you, like spirit pieces in Animal Crossing New Horizons. And obtain elements by placing them under your control, like Halo 3's Capture the Flag mode. Optimize a game element, like you're standing in Mario Kart 8. Reach a particular location in a game, like platforms in Celeste. Remove an element from existence, like Bowser in Mario Brothers. Solve by picking the correct element from a large set, like when you make an accusation in Clue. And finally, synchronize elements in space and time, like in Beat Saber. Feedback is multimodal stimuli. At the lowest level of meaning is phonological feedback, like does color red, or individual sounds. You can string these phonemes together to create a lexicon, whose elements have a meaning attached, like this symbol or this sound effect. Lexical items can be structured according to rules of a grammar. In Mario Brothers, levels are structured from left to right, which give implicit meaning. You know that progress is to the right, and if you keep going rightward, things will advance. Finally, we have denotational feedback, which communicates the plot structure directly. All of these elements contribute to the narrative universe, even though denotational feedback is what is most often associated with the narrative of the game. That motivates the question, what is the narrative of the game? Take it away, past self.
At the top level, you can ask the question, what does this mean? To finish means save the princess. Goals are structured in a hierarchy. You have two hierarchies. Narrative goals themselves are an interpretation of ludological goals based on what the player thinks and what the game's feedback presents. Remove the Bowser token, you can more naturally think of it as defeating Bowser. The lower in the hierarchy that you go, the more tenuous these interpretations can become.
Because they require us to fill in the blanks in our head. Now, why does any of this matter? I will give you three reasons. First is that GFI is useful to unpack narrative design issues. For example, ludonarrative dissonance. This was coined to describe how in BioShock you can adopt or reject Ayn Rand's objectivism philosophy through the mechanics, save or harvest the Little Sisters. But you cannot adopt or reject it narratively. You are required to help Atlas, who fought against objectivism, and cannot help Ryan, who championed it. You see both goals, but these are not linked in the game. Another form of dissonance can be related to endings. In Super Mario RPG, you can defeat the big bad and save the world, but when you reload the game, the world has not advanced in its narrative state. You cannot continue to explore in the aftermath of your activity. What happens if you have a goal with no narrative interpretation of it? This happens in Before I Forget. As you explore the pantry, you get an achievement for it, which you had no way of knowing you could get. This game, which takes place in the home of a woman with early onset dementia, also has the reverse case.
I need the toilet.
A desperate need to go to the bathroom with no way to achieve its ludological counterpart. No matter which door you open to find the bathroom, you end up in the closet. When something like this happens in games, it's thought of as a bug. Here, it's used deliberately to create a sense of helplessness. Second reason GFI matters is that it's a useful design tool. Player expectations, for example. Once an expectation is set up, we can do two things for effect. The first is satisfying it. This happens in Skyrim. As players approach this waterfall, they are met with the Bard's Leap summit has been discovered. The combination of UI prompt, its content, and its timing leads players to conclude that they should jump off a cliff, a ludological goal by way of a narrative one that is established. The game satisfies the expectation by presenting content at the end of the sequence, and also subvert expectations. This happens in Spec Ops: The Line. This example deals with the horrors of war. I understand if you do not want to see it and you do not want to hear it. Here's Corey Davis, co-creative director of this game, for getting some perspective on what they were going for.
Really set out to upend the player's expectation. There was this strong foundation in the military shooter genre that led the player to heroism or doing exactly what they're told to do. Foundation for us to sort of flip the narrative.
This is the case of narrative acts being polyvalent. Goal structure makes you think hero narrative, but the game presents feedback that recasts your activity under a different interpretation. And as the character deals with the atrocities they've just committed, the hope is that
you begin to reevaluate why you're doing the things that you're doing.
Third reason GFI matters is that it shows how all games do tell stories, but some are more intended than others. I'm Rogelio Cardona-Rivera, and on behalf of my co-authors, thank you for coming to my iKids 2020 talk.